Good morning, everybody. Just give it a couple of seconds for everyone to join. Welcome to today's Copilot webinar. We're really excited to share this information with you guys. Oh, there's still people joining. Let's let them in. Cool. So whilst people are joining, I will introduce myself. I'm Hannah. I am the product and marketing lead at Stripe OLT, and Stripe OLT are your host for today's session. I'm also joined by Peter and Nick from Ingram.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
If we could move on to the next slide, what I'll do is a little bit of an introduction and some housekeeping before we start the webinar. Basically, before I hand over to Peter and Nick, we've got a number of new connections on the call, so I just wanted to give it a quick introduction as to who Stripe OLT are. So we are a modern work and security solutions partner, which means our team are highly certified in Microsoft 365 technology, as well as having years of experience delivering IT solutions across the UK. So we've been going since 2004. And we've got offices in London, Manchester and Bristol. So we facilitate technology changes for organisations throughout the UK. I can say with confidence that we are a go-to partner when it comes to cloud and Microsoft solutions, and especially when it comes to levelling up your technology. So now I've done a brief introduction as to who Stripe OLT are. I just want to give a few sort of directions around housekeeping. So before we start, if you could paste questions into the Q&A, we will answer those at the end. So as we go through, if anything comes to mind, just pop it in there. And I'll also be popping a few polls in. This is just so we can see what kind of information you might want further from us and how Copilot can really add value to your organisation. So now I've done the housekeeping, I'm going to hand over to Nick and Peter.
Thank you, Hannah. And thank you everyone else as well for joining this call on this very, very cold December morning. I know we're all very busy people. So yeah, thank you for joining us. So my name is Nick Banks, and myself and my colleague Pete have got the pleasure of taking you through this lovely session around Microsoft 365 Copilot. As mentioned by Hannah again, if you've got any questions, just please pop them in the chat. We'll potentially try and answer them as we go, but if we'll hold most of the questions to the end of the session. So yeah, get them coming in. So over the next sort of hour or so, we're going to look at Microsoft 365 Copilot, and hopefully by the end you have a much better understanding of how it can help transform the way that you work. We're also going to understand a little bit about Microsoft's investment and strategy in AI, as well as their dedication really to implementing this AI solution responsibly and ethically as well. So we're going to look at some of the functionality within the Office apps that we know and love and we use every day. With 365 Copilot, and then towards the end we're going to look at some of those role-based scenarios, so where Copilot can truly maximize your time in your roles. And then at the very end we've got some strategic considerations as well prior to implementation, because believe it or not, you can't just turn it on and go. There are some things to consider. So without further ado, let's get in. So the world is changing. We're at a very unique moment in time, and that is made possible largely by the part of digitization of business. So entire industries are transforming and the macroeconomic environment is shifting. And we're at a technological inflection point. So a brief history of AI. So it may seem as though that we're entering kind of a new era in technology with AI, but in reality, there's been quite a few milestones to bring us up to where we are today. So AI is an idea. It's been around since the 1950s when Alan Turing, who you may be familiar with, invented the Turing test to determine if a computer could pass for a human in written linguistic fluency. So again, that's the very start of it, was almost 70 years ago. So yeah, it's not that the idea and the concept is not immediately new. And then we have Arthur Samuel of IBM, who coined the term machine learning in 1959. And then kind of moving up to where we are today. So products that we use every day, daily utilize AI, whether we realize it or not. So some examples of deep learning with AI are Netflix. So Netflix uses AI to recommend TV shows based on our viewing history, as well as our preference that we give to it. And again, Spotify, similar to Netflix, it uses AI to recommend songs and playlists to us. And then you've got things like Amazon Alexa, Google Assistant, Siri, and the list kind of goes on. And going really, really far back, you've even got predictive text, which is also a form of AI and deep learning. But we've recently hit a milestone, which is generative AI. So generative AI is kind of the word of the moment. The whole point of generative AI is it's trained on vast data sets. And with the help of algorithms, it's used to generate text, images, videos, and sound. And you may have heard of some examples already of this. So you may have heard of ChatGPT. You've got 3 and 4, and also you've got DALL-E 2. We're going to look at those in a bit more detail, or the concept of AI, in a few more slides' time. But that's kind of a brief history of AI and where we are today. I love this slide because it just shows the impact that it's having already. So mobile phones took 16 years to reach 100 million users on our Earth. Facebook took over 4.5 years to get to 100 million users, but ChatGPT took just 3 months. That just shows the demand is there for this kind of technology. And in a study I was looking at last night on the impact of AI, it's predicted that global GDP could increase by almost 26% by 2030. And that's just as a result of the accelerating development and take-up of AI. Again, scary stat. It's also predicted that 70% of companies are likely to have adopted at least one form of AI technology by 2030 as well. So, some will take multiple forms of AI. And technology advancements and growth, they go hand in hand. That's what we've seen from time gone by, and kind of we're at the start of this very new era, but the impact is already being felt pretty substantially. And the kind of the pace and the volume of work that we're experiencing is like nothing before, and we're spending too much time searching for information and navigating fairly inefficient meetings. Hopefully this is one of them for you all, but it leaves us less time really for the stuff that truly matters. And the volume of the data and emails and chats has kind of outpaced our own abilities to kind of process it all. And Microsoft calls this digital debt. So every minute that we spend managing this is not being spent really doing things that we do best, which is being creative. So nearly 2 in 3 people say they don't have enough time and energy to do their job. And those same employees are 3.5 times more likely to struggle with innovation and strategic thinking. So, the weight of technology and being remote and emails and chats, they're just weighing us down, and it's becoming quite uncontrollable. So a little bit more on that impact. So half of people say that they're worried that AI will replace their jobs. This isn't helped by BT Group recently announced that they're going to cut between 40 to 50,000 jobs by the end of this decade, as it moves towards more automated services using AI. And these sort of headlines, they're not helping at all. 70% of people would delegate as much as possible, though, to AI to lessen their own workload. So I'm definitely one of those people in that 70%. I love hybrid working. It's brilliant, but it does come at a cost, really, and a challenge. And that is that we don't always work until 5 o'clock, 5:30 p.m. or beyond, or a different time. But work is not restricted to our working hours. It can be done at any point of the day, and that's quite challenging as well. Another kind of report that I was reading called the Modern Work Trend Index stated that AI can help lift that burden of the digital debt and can potentially help fuel our innovation for the future. So innovation, as we know, will create growth, and growth will also create jobs. And another really, really good report I read recently was 85% of jobs that will exist in 2030. So what's that? 6-7 years time. They haven't even been invented yet. So there may be a risk to some jobs potentially because of AI, but there's going to be a lot of generation of new jobs, which is really, really exciting in my opinion. So now some of the capabilities of generative AI. So there is quite a big list, I must admit. So I've just kind of put in a few highlights. So chatbots, you may be familiar with those. They're really, really good, I think, for supporting customer problems. And actually, we quite like them, believe it or not. And that's because we don't necessarily want to wait for a human to become available. So having that interaction with with a computer to give us the information that we require is quite useful, rather than trailing through the internet trying to find answers to things. If you're a seller on Amazon also support you as well with listings using generative AI, so it can help you write product descriptions and titles and support you generally with your listings. And as mentioned on a few slides back, you've got virtual assistants like Alexa, like Google, and even Cortana if you've if you've ever used that with Windows or Windows Phone. But yeah, these technologies are starting now to understand us better and provide even better responses, and that's only going to improve. And then generative AI can increase our productivity as well with automation. It's also going to free us up a lot of time potentially as well in the future if we use it correctly. The thing I love though is it can create completely new content such as text, images, music, and there's lots of other things it can do, including coding, which is unbelievable. So my daughter, I was online with my daughter the other day and I asked her to give me an example of something that she wanted me to create. She said, can you create a dog in a field with a shoe in its mouth? And within seconds, it created that for me, and it completely blew her away. And it blows me away every day. So it's amazing technology. So yeah, if you haven't used these sorts of things yet, I really urge you to go and try them because they are brilliant. The thing that I use most of the time though daily is the chat feature within Microsoft Copilot. So you can ask it a question and it will respond to you, and it will give you the sources as well, which is what I really like, because you can then go and fact check them to make sure that what it's giving you is correct and accurate, and that you're happy to send it on to somebody else. So again, a brilliant feature, and the fact that it gives you those links to online websites to go and check is just brilliant. And kind of a bit further on in the future, I can see AI solving some of our most challenging problems as a world, and potentially experts think that it can even cure some disease, or at least speed us up to the point where we can start curing some disease. And another thought I had was renewable energy, and it's thought that it could potentially speed up that process as well, as we use computers to model things for us and to predict things in the future. So there's lots of capabilities that it can deliver, and it's very exciting. And then we've got the AI-powered organization. So it's going to rewire every part of organization in the future, and it's going to transform the way that we kind of interact and we work every day. But we can't just, as I've said before, turn it on and go. We need some sort of plan. So Microsoft's theory behind this is you're going to need that foundational productivity, and that looks like making sure you've got the right technology in your business, the right operating systems and tools that are required. And then you've got AI and automation as a product itself, and that's kind of what we're talking about today. That's Microsoft 365 Copilot, and there are others, right? And there's more that's going to be coming down the line. And then a high performance organization. So Microsoft believes that to really make the most of it, you need to be a leader in your industry. Focus on what matters most, have that clear vision, have strategies that align to your missions and your values. And again, these businesses, they're going to adapt quickly to changing customer needs and market conditions. So they're really at the top of their game, and they're going to continuously improve. So just setting up AI and running with it isn't going to solve all your problems. You're going to need to have some things kind of in play before you go, and the right processes. And a little bit about public policy. So government, civil society, and industry, we've all got to come together and ensure that as this becomes a bigger part of our lives, which it surely will, that laws, norms, and standards are in place to guide the responsible use of AI. So it's a multi-stakeholder approach. We can't just do it alone. One business can't just do it alone. So Microsoft themselves are a founding member of a number of ethical AI initiatives, and they've engaged with a couple of huge organizations globally, such as the OECD, which is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. And then you've got UNESCO, which you may be more familiar with, which is United Nations Educational and Scientific Cultural Organization. So, alignment between all of these international norms and standards is going to be very, very important, so that we can kind of collaborate across borders and also get people that really need it access to this brilliant technology as well. That was a very, very high level overview of how of kind of where we are today. But I'm going to hand over to Pete now, who's going to talk to you a little bit more about what Microsoft 365 Copilot is.
Thanks, Nick. If we have a bit of time later, I'll show you how you can use elements of Copilot today in the web browser. So keep me right on time, Hannah. But we can try and do something with that later. But yeah, so as you're all aware, Copilot was announced in March earlier this year. A raft of other companies were announcing AI capabilities, but the one that everyone keeps talking about is Microsoft 365 Copilot. And the reason why is because it's built into the apps that we use day to day in our working life. So as you can see on the screen here, we've got the various statistics around what you can use Copilot for and how does it work? How does it fit in? Because most of us have probably used ChatGPT already to ask questions and things like that. But how 365 Copilot differs from ChatGPT is quite interesting. So ChatGPT uses the internet to find you the answers, and it has a raft of information to work on. Microsoft 365 Copilot works on your data within your tenancy. It's restricted to what it can see in your tenancy. Yes, it can use the internet search to get additional information, but your data is your data. Nothing ever leaves the ecosystem of your tenant. Unlike ChatGPT, if you upload a document, it learns from that document, it learns and saves that information. Whereas with Microsoft 365 Copilot and Copilot itself, which was formerly Bing Chat Enterprise, none of your data leaves the infrastructure of your organization. So that's quite important to know. So if there is anyone using ChatGPT for work, try and use copilot.microsoft.com, where you can use the Microsoft version of Copilot. When it comes down to the security, compliance, and privacy, whatever privacy, compliance, or security options you have within Microsoft, it will inherit those policies. So anything that you've got set up in terms of document retention, privacy, compliance, it will inherit whatever you've already implemented. And this is going back to what Nick was saying earlier, as yes, you can go ahead and turn on Copilot when it becomes generally available for CSP, the licensing program that most businesses are on, or Web Direct via credit card with Microsoft. However, what's important to know is that if you don't have the right security technologies in place already, you would be opening yourself up to a huge risk where users could ask Copilot for something and reference the name of a document or reference the name of a project, and anybody could access it in the organization. And you need to check whether your security policies are the right fit for what you want to protect in your organization. You might have documents saved in a SharePoint, but there might be a copy of that document where you cannot see who's got access to that. And as I said before, yeah, your data is secure within those policies. When it comes to the apps that it's integrated with, it's directly integrated into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams, and more. And we'll go through those in a bit more detail later. But you'll have a sidebar that you can bring aside, and you can interact with it either with the keyboard on the document, on the PowerPoint, or you can interact with it with the sidebar. And as an IT admin, for any of you who are savvy enough to play around with the 365 Admin Center, you can decide what controls and where can Copilot get its data from. So you can say that I don't want Copilot to index or to reference anything from this specific SharePoint. This SharePoint is off limits. You cannot look at this SharePoint for anything related to any question that anybody asks in Copilot, which I think is fantastic. If you've got highly sensitive business data that you don't want anyone to look at, you can turn off indexing within Microsoft to say, no, Copilot cannot reference anything in this corner of the organization. And the best thing as well is Copilot does learn from the processes. It learns from everything that people are doing in regards to the queries that they're asking commonly on a day-to-day basis. So it will know that Sophie in accounts creates a monthly report that is accessible on the 5th of every month. And if somebody asks for that report, then it knows that Sophie does it. It will go and see if Sophie's working on it, and it will reference that if Sophie's made it available for everyone yet, or it will say it's not available, or so on and so forth. So The important thing to know here as well is that Copilot will only get better the longer it is in your tenant, and the more established your tenant is, the more data that's accessible within your tenant. If you're a startup business and you're about a year old and you implement Copilot, there's not going to be a huge structure of information for Copilot to learn from for you to have the best experience. Whereas if you're an organization that's 10, 15, 20 years old, there's a lot of data there. There's a lot of employees. It can learn very fast in terms of every process that everyone has, every document that's available, and so on and so forth. So you can perform your tasks and queries a lot faster. Next slide, please, Nick. So we're going to play a short video in a second here around the Microsoft launch video of Copilot. If you haven't seen it before, this may be I think this is the updated one, Nick, if I'm right. So we'll play this short video here and we'll move on to the next one.
Whoa. Straight to the top, never going down, don't wait for the drop. Stand still, that's the motto, yeah. Brand new bands for the auto, oh. Foot to the ground, full throttle. Big energy for the night like lotto. Y'all talk lots, never this quiet. Life like a Seinfeld plot. Vault full of songs, all of them bombs. Something like a minefield guy, boom. Get it, tickets running out quick. Bet it, never get it out big. Said it, never had to shout it. They said I couldn't ever do it, okay, how's this? Fit a week worth of work in a minute. Machine well oiled, you know how I stay efficient. To-do list written, I do this different. Hold up, wait a minute, I ain't finished. Okay. Look, flows the same now. Paved the way to snakes and fakes are chased out. Back to back to back, I changed the pace now. Had to stack the cash until the bank's out. Straight to the top, never going down, don't wait for the drop.
Great, thanks, Nick. So I'm sure you got a bit of a taste of just some of the things you can do, and Microsoft is very much chose its name of Copilot very carefully. As you know, it's not autopilot. It doesn't do your job for you. It helps you to support you, and it is your co-pilot as to such. So it helps you get 80% of your tasks that you're trying to do in the applications that you use every day done faster. So if you're stuck when in a creative moment and you're trying to think of some way to start something, if you're wanting to merge two documents together, if you're wanting to visualize something, it can do all that. So up on screen here now, and we just got three little icons here, which talks around how Copilot works. There is one thing that's missing, which I'll talk on in a second, but it obviously uses the large language model of AI to combine all of the data, and the data is structured within what Microsoft is called the Microsoft Graph. So all your data is sieved through the Microsoft Graph, where the large language models of Copilot can learn and understand all the data in your organization in a unique way. And through that natural language processing, it is integrated into each of the individual apps within 365. But what makes Microsoft Copilot quite unique is the Microsoft Syndex. So the Microsoft Syndex allows Copilot to understand the structure of that data within the graph. Going back to what I said earlier, it understands the themes and the processes that people perform on a regular basis. It will learn that I create PowerPoints a lot, and I've created a PowerPoint on Copilot or whatever, or I've created a PowerPoint on this, or I've created a document in Excel that's this. And if someone ever asks Copilot a question within the organization, I'm looking for a document that has this, it will know that I've created it, and it will be able to find that information faster. So that's where the Syndex comes into play here with the Microsoft Graph data, the data that's in your organization. And again, on the next slide, Nick, please, it is grounded within all your security, compliance, and privacy policies that you've already got. The important thing to note as well is that it's all gardened around responsible AI measures. Now, we've all seen Terminator and iRobot and all these other sci-fi movies that have shown AI in a very unique way, shall we say. But the important thing to know is that very similar to iRobot, I guess, as a bit of a joke, Microsoft has 6 rules that AI must meet within Microsoft in order for it to be safe. It has to be inclusive for everyone. It has to, not cause any irreversible harm and things like that. And it has to have enough data to work on comfortably. But anyway, the important thing to know is that there was obviously been some summits recently. There was one held actually recently in Milton Keynes at Bletchley Park, the first AI summit of its kind, where global leaders and tech leaders all came together to talk about artificial intelligence and the impact it can have. Because obviously we all want to make sure that we're using this in the right way, and everyone's safe. Now, in regards to the responsible AI, you can have a look at what Microsoft's 6 pillars are. If you just drop it in Bing or other search engines are available, and you can find out some more details around how Microsoft governs the results of AI. But it's also important to know that with it being generative AI, nobody can be held really responsible for the answers, because Microsoft does state that it can be wrong and it is generative. So just bear in mind that when you get a result from AI, Microsoft does ask in its terms and conditions that people agree that they will read through it and confirm that that is what they are looking for. Because there was a case a few months ago, I'm sure you've read online, or you can have a look, where some lawyers in New York used ChatGPT to respond to some court case documents, and they did not read through what its response was. They submitted it to the judge, and it was absolute balmy. It was just nothing to do with the court case whatsoever. And the judge took them off the case, had some very strong words about them, and they're now being sued by their clients because they didn't support them in their case, and they used artificial intelligence to respond to the court case. So it was quite an interesting turn of events. But it's one of those things where you have to be very aware that, again, it is your co-pilot. It is there as a helping hand. I wouldn't say it's like bringing your kid to work to help you, draft up a document, and you have to double check their work, but you need to be mindful that you cannot leave it alone to do your job for you. All right, go on to the next slide, please, Nick. So, as I said before, it is grounded within the applications within the apps that you use day to day. So shortly, Nick will show you how you can use it in Word, how you can use it in PowerPoint, how you can use it in Outlook and Teams. And these are the 3 core pillars that it can help you within those applications. So it will help you be creative. It will help you start a document when you're staring at a blank page. You can draft up an idea that you have in your head into text and let it generate that. When it becomes more productive for you, you can ask it to summarize an email, which I'll demonstrate hopefully later on. Maybe you come back from holiday and you got 50 or 100 or 200 emails in your inbox, and you're thinking, oh, my first day back is a write-off.
Still in my thunder here, Pete. You're still in my thunder.
Oh, sorry.
I'm joking.
So you can ask it to summarize what's most important. And then the up-level skills. This is my interesting one, where it comes to, you're using Excel, and we all have an Excel wizard somewhere in our organization, and you want to compare 2 sets of data or columns, and you can ask it to go and say, add some color, and it will colorize the chart in a certain way or format, maybe, traffic light system. But we all know that colorizing the data would be something called a conditional format. So and you can ask it, how did it do something? So if you ask it to do something, you can ask it, how did you do that? And it will reference what process you would have to do in future so that you can learn how it did it, which I think is very powerful as well. And the last thing, before I move on to the next slide, is coaching. Now, we're unable to demo coaching today, but when you're asking Copilot to look at something or to reference something, you have the option of let it generate or let it coach you. And that's something that hasn't been spoken about too much in the launch of Copilot. So Copilot obviously will generate all kinds of text and images and things for you. But the coaching element is one of the most interesting things of Copilot, where if you type out a response to an email, and don't use Copilot, you just type out a response going, yeah, thanks for the email, I'm going to do this. You can ask it to look at the text that you've wrote and to coach you into a better response. It will say, you're a bit short in this email, Peter. try using these types of words to respond back to it, or you've missed out a response, you've not addressed the subject as a whole, and things like that, or there's a spelling mistake here or something like that. So if you've got dyslexia or anything else, it can help you understand how you can respond better or write better in terms of what you're trying to do in your day-to-day job, which I think is pretty powerful. All right, and
Superb.
next slide there, please, Nick. I think
we're into some demos now. So
we're into some demos.
We're going to see Copilot and Word now. So I hope the internet is holding up and everyone can make out what's being said and at least view some of the content. But yeah, we shall persevere.
You need to create a customer proposal and don't have time for writer's block. Copilot can draft a proposal based on your customer notes in OneNote, as well as another internal document. Copilot scans the target files and gets to work, quickly generating a first draft with all the key details from the files you provided. Now let's say you want this to look like one of your previous proposals. Copilot can give you a draft in the format you typically use by specifying a reference file, and it can also insert relevant images from another file. To add the final polish, Copilot can generate a short summary at the top of your document and also suggest ways to strengthen your proposal, with options such as adding an FAQ, which it will generate for you as a starting point for you to refine and add to. Copilot has taken a tedious task, simplified it, and freed you to focus on the details that matter most.
I don't know about anyone else here, but the amount of time I spend in front of Microsoft Office applications, not knowing what to write or how to begin, this is going to kind of guarantee that is almost over. And what I love as well is the more you tell it, the more information that you give it, the more prompts that you give it, the better the responses will be. So that kind of Copilot term is really important. So you drive this AI tool to where you want it to go. And yeah, I just love the fact that I'm fairly creative, but I could be more creative, but this will enhance my creativity levels and make me look far more professional in my documents that I create. So yes, it's a superb thing. And again, it can write stuff for you, edits it, summarizes it. And I love the fact that you can, I'm a big user of OneNote, so it can reference your OneNote and write a proposal from notes for you and make it look professional. And it will also add in things like images as well, so making it look more visually appealing. And the FAQ thing that was mentioned in that video is something that I probably wouldn't have factored in to the level that might. And again, it just kickstarts that process, and it might not be perfect. And that the point is, it isn't going to be perfect. You need to kind of work with it. And a term that we use quite often is it kind of gets you 80% of the way there, but it saves you all that time in the creative process getting you to that point. So that's what I like, and you just can kind of critique it. Next up, we've got PowerPoint. Again, we are using PowerPoint now. I'm a big user of PowerPoint as well, and I spend far too much time trying to create notes and make it look pretty, and it normally doesn't look that pretty. But yeah, this is going to be a game changer. So let's get on to the next one.
Everyone has had a moment when they wish that they could turn their proposal into a custom-ready presentation without having to start from scratch. Now you can. Using just your own words, Copilot can translate Word into PowerPoint. Now you have a professional-looking presentation that you can hone and polish. Let's say you want to add a slide. Give Copilot some quick instructions and it immediately generates it for you. There it goes. Copilot doesn't always get everything right, so it's important to verify you are happy with it and make any edits that are needed. So this slide is too wordy. You can ask Copilot to make it more visual, which it does effortlessly. And check this out, Copilot can even animate the slide. It gives it a professional design treatment in a single click. But it doesn't stop there. Copilot automatically generates speaker notes for all your slides. It's not only a time saver, it's helping you be a better presenter.
Yeah. As I've said, it's a game changer, and again, I love the ease at which it can do these things and the speed as well, because we do spend too much time focusing on these little details within PowerPoint, getting it looking just right, but this is going to just accelerate that process. And again, I've spent years using a tool in PowerPoint called Designer. So you may have been familiar with that. It's been around for quite a few years now. And that is really good, you know, but this is like another level on from that. It puts transitions in there for you, like it's just shown. It can make that document more visual and put images in there. And it pulls them in automatically when you prompt it to do that. And all that text, again, I have a real issue with putting too much text on slides, and this will just give you the ability to move that text into note form and make it a nice, well written, easy to digest kind of scripts, if you like. I love the fact it's going to be able to do that. So yeah, it's going to save a lot of time for me. But this next one may be very, very useful to those of you that work in finance and sales. So yeah, it's all about Excel, this next one.
Copilot puts all the rich capabilities of Excel at your fingertips. Say you need to analyze this quarter's sales results for the monthly business review. You start by asking Copilot to analyze the data and give you 3 key trends. Within seconds, you've got what you need, but you want to drill in. You ask Copilot a follow-up question about one of the trends. Copilot creates a new sheet, giving you a sandbox to play in, and helping you get a better understanding of what's happening without modifying the data in the original sheet. You ask Copilot to visualize what contributed to the decline in sales growth this period. Copilot adds a little color to make the problem jump off the page. Now you want to dig a little deeper and ask a follow-up question with a what-if scenario. Copilot not only answers your question, it creates a simple model of the scenario, and even asks you if you want to learn more about what it did, with a step-by-step breakdown. Finally, you can ask it to create a graph of your projected model. Copilot has turned a sea of data into clear insights and actions.
Love it. I'm not an Excel whiz. I don't proclaim to be, but I do use it quite often, and I know a lot of people do. But you will no longer have to go and find that expert within the business. You can become that expert with Copilot. And I love the way that, as Pete mentioned already, that it can help you, it can coach you and can train you and help you become better at the program that you're using as well, which is also brilliant. So yeah, the ability to spot trends, as I mentioned in that video as well, at just a touch of a button is superb. And the fact that you can project as well, almost the future, and look ahead to give you a better steer on the market or on customer information. Yes, again, a massive game changer. This is probably the program that I spend most of my time in. And for me, this is probably my favorite. So it is Outlook. Let's have a look.
We all struggle with the pull of the inbox. Sometimes it keeps us from focusing on our most important work. But at the same time, you have important emails to respond to. Copilot can help you separate the signal from the noise and give you hours of time back. Copilot can help you triage your inbox, highlighting the most important emails to prioritize. And Copilot also helps you on the go in Outlook Mobile. It can summarize long email threads. You can draft a reply, use data from an Excel file, and Copilot will generate a reply for you. You can edit it. You can make it more concise, change the writing style, or add more context. Now all that's left to do is review the proposed response and hit send. It's a productivity game changer.
So how many of you have spent days trying to catch up on your inbox, or just trying to get through it of a regular day, and how many of you sit there on that Sunday night after a lovely sunny holiday in the Bahamas, of course, and you just dread that Monday morning grind of the inbox because you've got 2 weeks of work to catch on. So again, that's going to be a thing of the past, because Copilot's going to summarize all of that stuff that you've missed, and bring to the top of your inbox the most important things. And again, it mentioned it in that video, it can even create a draft response for you on some of those emails as well. So again, productivity game changer. Yeah, it's just going to streamline the way we work. Okay, next up is Teams.
Imagine you have an appointment that conflicts with your weekly business review. What if you could do both? With Copilot, you can opt to follow a meeting. After the meeting ends, Copilot will summarize what you missed. You'll get a notification in Teams when the recap is ready. This recap will highlight content that was shared, summarize notes, and any action items for you or others whose names were mentioned. You see that one of your customers was discussed, and you want to learn more. You can ask Copilot to clarify questions, and it provides detailed response. It can tell you why a certain decision was made, and gives you helpful context. You can even ask Copilot what solutions were considered, and it provides citations from the transcript, so you can see where Copilot drew these conclusions. It's a huge time saver. So that was pretty cool. But the real magic of Copilot happens during a live meeting. Let's say you're in a meeting with your team. You can ask Copilot to summarize the meeting so far. You can see how it summarizes who said what points were made, and it's really capturing the spirit of the discussion. And as the meeting progresses, you can check in on where people stand. You can even ask Copilot what questions are unresolved. It's just amazing to see this happen in real time during a meeting.
So that demo showed that with Copilot, you can kind of follow a meeting that you're not able to attend. So after that meeting will end, Copilot's going to be able to summarize for you what you've missed. So you'll get a notification in Teams, and when that recap is ready, and then it will highlight all the content that was shared. It will summarize the notes and any actions for you or others of names that were mentioned. That's quite key, because if no names were mentioned, it won't know who to put the action to. But it can do this in real time during a meeting. So if you do join late as well, it doesn't matter, because it will summarize it for you and you can catch up. Again, we can't always be in two places at once as much as we'd love to be, but with Copilot for Teams, it kind of gives you that ability to understand anything that you've missed without needing to rewatch the whole meeting. So brilliant. Okay, Pete, I know you said you wanted to demo this potentially. I don't know if you want to do that towards the end, but I'll play this video as well if you prefer. So.
Yeah, no, play the video. It's going to be slightly different. It's going to be kind of Outlook more, but yeah.
Lovely.
Introducing Microsoft 365 Chat, a powerful new capability in Microsoft 365 to solve your most complex problems at work. Let's say you're a marketer at a national chain of home improvement stores, and you need to get the latest on the store opening. You start your day with Copilot, asking what's hot in your inbox today. It does some thinking and gives you an overview of the most pressing items. Great. Looks like the new store opening plans could use your attention. Let's dive in deeper there. Copilot combs through all your recent emails, chats, documents, and meetings, whether you attended them or not, to get you up to speed in moments. It didn't just summarize a single document, it knew what sources to pull from and what information to extract from each. Next, you need to do some market research. Let's say you want some details on square footage and the proximity of competitors to your new location. M365 Chat scours the web, and within seconds, it finds everything you're looking for. And it includes references, so you can easily fact-check the results. You're curious, how does this stack up against the other stores you opened in the past year? Copilot figures out which stores you mean, crunches the numbers, and gives you the answer. Next on your to-do list, finalize the date and speaker for the opening event. You missed the last meeting, and this might have come up in the conversation. Copilot's got you covered, getting you up to speed in seconds. Looks like it was a dynamic discussion, and it's your responsibility to make the final decision. To do that, you need to understand all the factors at play, including the implications they have on your grand opening timeline. Copilot extracts the relevant details and puts them in an organized table, which helps bring the full picture into view.
You'll be pleased to know that I think we potentially had some sound issues. That's the last video that we've got. So I think Pete's just referenced there that there's a playlist of videos which he's popped in the chat on YouTube. So it always can be a problem trying to stream video live on the internet on a webinar. But yeah, we've got them available for you to look at if you want to. So the summary of that video though was you no longer kind of need to scramble around trying to find the document that you need for that important meeting. So M365 Chat Microsoft 365 chat, it's kind of a holistic view of all of your productivity apps. So it doesn't just work within one, like Copilot for PowerPoint. It works across the whole of Microsoft 365. So it will also find information on the web in your documents. It can summarize those emails. It can draft that content for you. And the thing I really like about it is you can ask it questions and it will answer them for you. There's a few ways to access it as well. So you can access it using Teams. You can access it on Bing Online, or you can access it on Microsoft365.com as well. So the whole point of it is to save you time, so you haven't got to continue to go in different apps and programs, and you can kind of stay on one page, which is what I really like. So yeah, it is literally like having your own executive assistant. So it's like having someone that can attend your calls for you, if you skip them, and read all of your emails. If potentially if you've missed some, it will pick that up. And it kind of frees you to focus up more on the most important things in life and the most important aspects of your job. I'm going to hand back over to Pete now, who's going to give you some examples of how Copilot can help different roles within your organization.
Thanks, Nick. So yeah, we're going to cover off 4 key independent roles of where you would find people in pretty much any organization and how they would use Copilot. So the first one we'll talk about is Microsoft 365 Copilot for HR. And on this next slide, we'll talk around some of the things that obviously they have to do from a day-to-day standpoint, such as recruiting people, hiring, reviewing CVs, compensation and benefits, maybe even creating policies and documentation, helping managers with their performance management timelines and things like that, any analytics and onboarding people into the company. And on the next slide, you can see that Copilot can help review a CV. You can say, does this meet the criteria of the job offering? So if you post a job offering and say they have to have these key skills, you're going to have Copilot compare the job offer and the CV to see if it meets the criteria. And if it does or doesn't, you can have it draft up a response to respond to that in a professional way. It can even summarize meeting notes. So say, for instance, they performed a meeting on Teams. You can have it review and summarize the responses from that individual. You can have it give it as key bullet points so that, if that person was successful, you can explain to them why they were successful, or if they were not successful, you can highlight to them why they were not. So it kind of saves you from having to take notes during the meeting if the meeting's recorded. Again, one of the things you need to be aware of is that you need to be able to host the meeting for you to get the recording transcript. If the meeting is held by another business or another person outside of your organization, Copilot cannot give you a transcript of that meeting. It has to be, if you want Copilot to work for yourself, you have to have it recorded and created on your tenancy. So just bear that in mind. But yeah, so we'll go on to the next role, which is for sellers. So anybody in a sales role. And obviously, most of us are in sales these days anyway. But you can see here in terms of collaborating with other people, trying to achieve sales targets, negotiating and closing, and objection handling is a big piece of that as well, and lead generation as well. And on the next slide, we have the Copilot thing where you can get it to summarize customer emails from a crowded inbox and things like that. And you can help it go through and, draft a professional email for your customer. All right. But there's some really fantastic things in there in terms of the sales pitch as well. Like we talked about earlier, if you have a document that the customers gave you, maybe a tender document to say you can tender for this business, you can draft up a response to say, I want this response in a PowerPoint presentation, and I want it to address the concerns that are laid out in that document. So never again do you have to spend hours and hours and hours into the night trying to create a proposal letter or a presentation to respond to a tender. You can have Copilot reference everything and highlight anything that you may have missed when it comes to making and closing that sale. So as you can see there, it will capture meeting notes as well, like it can do for the HR people, and it can obviously summarize and draft up anything that you may have missed. All right. Then we move into marketing. So Hannah, you're going to love this. So obviously some of the day-to-day stuff that that marketing people would do would be around building and managing relationships, tracking and analyzing results, creating campaigns, developing marketing strategies, collaborating with other people in different areas of the business so that everyone's voice is heard when it comes to creating that campaign, and managing the results of the leads and digital channels within that. And as we move on to the next slide, you can see here that when it comes to brainstorming ideas, again, going back to the earlier stuff around Teams and Word, it can help draft up a plan. So if a meeting was done around everyone creating the idea of, right, we'll do a campaign on this, you can use it to summarize and put it into your draft document, and even draft it into a PowerPoint again. And even when you have leads coming through via email, you can use it to attach specific documents. You can use it to respond to those leads and include other people in other documents, so that you don't have to worry about drafting over and over and over again different independent replies. You can have the same reply for everyone or independent replies, whatever works. Yeah, a fantastic way to use it in that functionality. And then the last one is AI for finance. So again, Nick talked on it earlier around Excel, which we'll talk about in a second. But when it comes to finance, a lot of it is all a numbers game, where we're budgeting and forecasting, risk management, financial reporting, continuous learning, decision making, and basically analyzing a lot of the data that comes with it, figuring out the trends, the losses, of how you would do that. And on the next slide here, Nick, again, analyzing the business results and how did it get to the conclusion we've seen in the Excel demonstration, a projected figure of if you've done something differently, how did it get that result and why, is a fantastic way, and it can generate those notes for you. Obviously, in terms of giving the breakdown to visualize that, looking at the numbers can be great, but putting it into a chart or a Power BI kind of graph, it can show you a much easier way. And then you could summarize by putting in the document name of the PowerPoint presentation you're going to go for senior leaders. So you could say, right, take everything on this Excel spreadsheet that has been drafted into a chart, and I want to reference this PowerPoint presentation, and I want you to create a PowerPoint presentation on the results. And you won't have to do anything from scratch anymore. So again, these are some of the really great things that you can do within each different department for that role. So I'm going to hand back over to Nick here for the strategic implementation. Oh no, actually, this is me still.
Can it be Hannah?
Oh, is it Hannah?
It
My
is.
apologies. For the strategic implementation and preparing for Copilot.
Great, thank you, Nick. So lovely. Now we've looked at how Copilot can empower, I guess, your business in certain areas and within certain roles. Let's look at the journey towards Copilot and the implementation piece, because it's not an overnight one. I think we've probably all guessed that from the content so far. So to use Copilot, basically your organization needs to assess, I guess, their readiness through 4 key lenses. Now, these lenses are benchmarking your organization, assessing your users internally and the readiness of that, identifying the tool sets that you need and want to use internally, and then also there's the data security and governance piece. So let's, on the next slide, delve into what each of these mean. Cool. So as you can see, there's a number of areas you need to explore. Now, this is just a very small selection of questions you could be asking yourself to help understand the types of technicality you need to consider before implementing Copilot. So if we take a brief look at user readiness, for example, Copilot users either need an E3 or E5 license, an Azure Active Directory account that will give you access to the 365 apps and services that work with Copilot. such as Word and Outlook, all the ones we know and love. So there's a basic sort of question there to be asking yourselves. If we then look at organisation profile, so this is I guess it's good to think about use cases within your business specifically to really build a strong business case for this, potentially with your stakeholders. So perhaps that could be also exploring like other areas of AI that are used within your business. I guess the same applies to the collaboration piece. So how do you collaborate in your organisation, and where could you use AI to enhance that? And then saving the best till last, in my opinion, so the data security and governance piece. Now, Pete's already alluded to this. It's crucial to recognise that Microsoft 365 Copilot uses existing permissions and policies to deliver the most relevant information to your Copilot users, people within your business. So essentially, it's building on top of your existing commitments to data security within your enterprise. So if we go to the next slide, we can delve into that a little bit deeper. Okay, so for many organizations, content oversharing, data governance, it can be a bit of a challenge. You know, everyone saves a document in their organization, perhaps not everyone. You know, when you're sharing a file, perhaps they select, you know, all people within the business have access to this. That's the kind of stuff we need to be looking at before implementing Copilot. Basically, you don't want Fred from sales accessing the CTO's personal HR file. So access permissions and labeling is a real key consideration prior to any implementation. So yeah, where can you start? Basically, that's looking at your access policies, your SharePoint restrictions, document labeling. And naturally, if you need support with any of that, we are here to help. But all of these will be key, basically, to ensure the success of any implementation. So in terms of implementation, if we go on to the next slide. So in terms of what you actually need to get started, so like what are the prerequisites for this? So there are certain licenses you need, E3 and E5, and soon it will be Business Premium and Standard. Microsoft haven't yet released it to those yet. It's just enterprise customers currently, but you will also need an Azure Active Directory account. You need OneDrive. You already need all of the apps implemented. So yeah, SharePoint, Outlook, Teams, etc., etc. You can see here that if you want any more information about what you technically need to get this ready for your business, there's a link here, and I will share this with everyone following this. It basically just goes into a bit more in depth of those core areas there. And I think that's handing back to Nick now.
Thanks, Hannah. So one thing we don't yet have is a specific user amount that is required for SMB customers to access 365 Copilot, Microsoft 365 Copilot. It's generally available for customers that are on a enterprise agreement from November the 1st, I think it was. So customers can get access to this now, but as we've already kind of mentioned, it wouldn't be wise. We need to make sure that policies and protections are in place with our data. So it's definitely worth looking at that prior to turning it on. But yeah, it is generally available for enterprise agreement customers already. We haven't had pricing yet, although we have an idea of what it could look like, and we haven't had a time for when it will come to customers of an SMB size. One thing we have heard, though, which I think I can say, Pete, is that it's very unlikely that it will be a minimum of 300 users required for this product, because SMB customers typically are 300 users or less, and Microsoft's SMB or small medium business SKUs, like M365 Business Basic, Business Standard, and Business Premium, they have a 300 user limit. So by saying to a customer, you must have 300 of your users with this Copilot license, that would be quite extreme. So we have heard that isn't going to be the reality, but we don't have the numbers yet. We'll hopefully know more in the new year, sort of end of the first quarter, potentially going into the second quarter of the new year. But some quick takeaways for us before we can move on to those next steps and the questions is, just to summarize, so Microsoft 365 Copilot is Microsoft's AI-powered assistant, your Copilot, if you like, that works across your Microsoft 365 apps, which we know and love, we use every day, like Word, Excel, PowerPoint. It can help with a range of tasks, from writing emails to creating reports, presentations, and charts, and it will make you more efficient. That is definitely going to be the case. It's going to reduce time spent on those mundane tasks and more time spent on the stuff that we love, which is being a bit more creative and collaborating with our teams. And from what we've kind of seen already, there is a lot of engagement and a lot of I wouldn't say awareness, but a lot of engagement, I would say. Just people want to get hands-on with it, want to understand how it works and how it can benefit them. And I've done quite a few webinars in my past, in my previous role at Microsoft. And this is by far the most attended of webinar series, if you like. More people want to know about this than any other thing that I've chatted about before. So it's very in demand. And as we've already mentioned, there's lots to do before you switch on the license. And again, Stripe can help you with that. But crucially, Copilot will inherit your security and privacy standards that are already in place, so that your information doesn't end up in the wrong hands. That is critical. So I'll hand back over to Hannah now for next steps, and then we will look at any questions.
Just realised I'm muted. Sorry, guys. That is a common thing from me, unfortunately.
I didn't notice. And if I didn't notice, then everyone else would have.
Thanks, Nick. Cool. So finally, what we wanted to do is just give you some actionable next steps to help you on your journey towards Copilot, basically. So again, I know we've said this 10,000 times now, but first and foremost, start thinking about your licensing and clean up as much data as you can. Begin document labeling. Ultimately, we suggest booking in a Copilot readiness workshop with us. We'll be booking these in from February onwards, but obviously we can get that arranged for you now. Please let me know, just reach out to your account manager or potentially hello@Stripe OLT, and we can get that sorted for you guys. Yeah, so if that basically leads us on to any questions.
Well, just before we go on to the questions, I'm just going to quickly showcase what people can do and get their hands on Copilot now while we wait for Copilot for 365. So I'm just going to share my screen here because we can all do this today. So just let me know, Hannah, when you can see my screen.
It's taking a little minute.
Yeah, no problem.
There we go.
Brilliant. Okay. So I'm using the Microsoft Edge browser. I know most people use Chrome at the moment, but the Microsoft Edge browser has actually got Copilot functionality built into it now. So it might encourage you to start using it now. But what I want to show you here is how you can use Copilot today with the web apps of 365 you've already got. So as you can see, I've got all my installed apps along the bottom. But what I've done is I've opened up Outlook in the web to have a look at my emails. Now, one of the things I can do here is if I look at this email from Microsoft, which is an education newsletter, and it's quite big, it's quite long, and I'm like, oh, I really don't want to look through all that to see if there's anything interesting in it. What I can do is on the Edge browser, you now have a sidebar. At the very top here, you can open up Copilot, which is Bing Chat Enterprise, formerly known as. So it's copilot.microsoft.com you would typically go to, but it's built into the Edge browser now. So what I can do here is I can go ahead and say, can you summarize this email? And I'm asking Copilot to look at this email that I've got currently open and give it a second. Sure, however, I need to clarify, blah, blah. It might ask me for permission in a second. Can you provide a summary of this email? Let's try this again. Love a live demo, you know. But because I've got it open on the side here, I believe I gave it permission. Sure, here is a summary of the email. There we go. It is referencing a completely separate email that I've got open. Let me try and open this up separately. Right. Let's see if I can do it slightly differently. But anyway, what can you summarize? Last time I'll try this. The email from the email titled Microsoft Educator newsletter. Even with spelling mistakes, it will still do it. Oh, it's not wanting to do it. Great. Love a live demo. Anyway, I got it to do it earlier, and I thought it'd be a good idea to try and summarize it. But have a go and see if you're a bit more successful than I am on this. But it said you've got Copilot built in here, and it can summarize emails for you in the web app. So any of the web apps you've currently got, obviously you can open up different web apps along here in different documents, and you can use Copilot on the sidebar as an additional reference point for you to start using a bit of Copilot functionality now.
Great stuff. Thanks, Peter. I know I will probably be trying that after this.
Yeah.
Cool. I think we've got a couple of questions. So we've got one regarding PowerPoint. Let's have a little look at that. So PowerPoint related questions. Could Copilot be intelligent enough to create slide decks using data from other Office applications? I believe the answer is yes to that.
Yeah, so you would reference the file by a / and say, I want it to drop in documents or images or something from another document. So Word, Excel, PowerPoint, I want to drop into Word, Excel, or PowerPoint, and you can get it to reference that. The thing with Copilot you need to be aware of is you have to almost treat it like you're talking to a child. You have to be very specific on what you want it to do, because if you're quite vague with your text that you're typing, it will not do it enough justice. You have to be very specific about, I want you to do this. As you've seen from the videos and the playlists link that I shared in the chat, the way in which Microsoft is interacting with Copilot is very, very specific. I want you to summarize the key trends, things like that. And it will understand that natural language. But yeah.
Yeah, just a point. I think on the back of that, Copilot basically is only as good as the information you give it, only as good as the access to the certain areas that you give it. So as many applications as you allow it to go into, and you know, as long as that data is enriched, basically, it will work for you well.
Yeah, I've just seen that there's a second point to that question as well around automating that process. I would dare say at this moment in time, yes, but I would have to have a look into it, because there is other versions of Copilot, such as Copilot for Fabric, Microsoft Fabric, which is Power BI and things like that, and Power Automate. So we'd have to look into another version of Copilot to see about automating that. But again, you could probably have a Power Apps query or something like that that could run something like that. But again, in terms of it running an automated process of I want it to do the same thing every single week, I think you will, after you've done it a few times, it will learn how best presented to do that. But yeah, we can explore that.
Great stuff, thank you. And then the second question, Nick or Peter, I don't know if you can help with this one, but basically, is Copilot limited to your Azure tenant? Could it scan files located locally on devices, or a different file server product?
So this is a bit of a grey area. I'm still trying to get final information on this, but my initial answer is no. The requirements for Copilot to work in your tenant is you need OneDrive activated. That is a must. You need to be using SharePoint, and Microsoft Loop needs to be enabled as well as some of the key requirements. Your tenant is obviously, in terms of your Entra ID policies that you set up and things like that, locally on devices and stuff like that, it may be possible. I've not explored the deployment of Copilot just yet, but if it's within as long as you've got the right technologies in place, it should be able to scan everything within your tenant. It just cannot scan anything outside of your tenant, even if you have B2B enabled. If you're working on one tenant domain, say it's ABC Bakeries, and then you've got another sister company, which is ABC Holdings, it will not be able to reference documents between organizations. It will only do it within your organization's tenant. So because Hannah's created this meeting today, I could not use Copilot to reference anything that everyone said here today because it's on the Stripe OLT tenant. But yeah, everything that you're doing within your organization, as far as I'm aware, it has to be done within the cloud. Your documents have to be saved in OneDrive or SharePoint. They have to be cloud accessible. Again, if they're on premise, I'm almost certain that you cannot reference them on premise. They have to be stored in the cloud.
Great stuff. I think those are the only questions we've had. Oh no, we've got one more from Tim. Let's have a look at this. Cool. So Tim has asked, is there a risk of individuals creating an output based on a set of questions and another user trying to create the same output but asking slightly different questions, getting different outputs? Are we creating a new world of macros to manage?
Kind of makes sense. I guess, Tim, could you give us a bit more clarity of an example of what you mean by that? I guess creating an output based on a set of questions. Yeah, I would need a bit more clarity on an example of that, Tim, if you could provide that in the chat. Or I don't know, Hannah, if you can unmute him. That'd be useful. But yeah.
Yeah, bear with me. Let's have a look. Where are you, Tim? Okay, I've allowed your mic, Tim, so hopefully you can ask the question and explain a little bit.
Yeah.
Lovely, great
stuff. You can hear me now. Yep.
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, I think it's just a simple case of, if we, in current business now, you've got a lot of people creating macros within Excel spreadsheets to create a certain output, and you basically hit run macro.
Right.
Those macros tend to be written by a certain person in a certain way to create a set output, and people have to know how those macros work and behave in order to get the same output. So if you're using a very new funky world of, I can just ask a series of questions and I keep asking the question to get the right result, and then person B also wants to run that report and get the same output maybe a week later, are you having to create a new set of tasks and questions that each individual person can pass on to another person to run and get the same result?
I would say, yeah. I would say you would have to, yeah, because unless you're overwriting the macros, like when it comes to documents, as an example, the document, the most up-to-date version of the document is what Copilot will reference. So if you've got a version history of something from last week, it will not reference anything from the previous document. When it comes to asking that question twice, it will, when different people are asking the same question but differently, it will learn what it will learn what that person's looking for, and it might be a different expectation of what it believes from another person. I know that you can give feedback to its responses, but I would dare say that, yes, you can tick it, yes, that was a good response, or no, that was a bad response. But you would, there is a thing called Copilot Studio, where you can put in place of all your users draft Copilot questions that users can use commonly to get answers that they want. So if they don't know how to interact with generative AI, Microsoft will give you questions and responses to expect, and you can create your own as well. So it might just be a bit of a sod's law where you'd have to experience it, see what happens with what happens within the user's questions and responses of Copilot before you can determine what is the best way to ask that question. But it would overwrite each one every time. Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah. I think that makes perfect sense. So when you're creating certain sort of output, it's fine. But I think when you're using it in the world of, say, certainly in Excel and spreadsheets and finance, where you're having to get a certain output each time round and running the data, it has to be much more strictly run. You can't just ask the questions off the hoof. If the set results have to be in a certain way, you have to set up a share of Copilot coding that runs the same set of questions each time around, right? So otherwise, you can get a very different result if someone runs it a quarter later.
Yeah,
okay, that makes sense. Yep.
No, that's fine.
Perfect.
Brill.
Great, thanks, Tim. I think we've got a couple more questions as well. So we've got one here. Can Copilot forget data? For example, we decided to remove access to a certain area of SharePoint.
I don't know the answer to that one. That's a very interesting one. I know that you can turn off access by turning off indexing. Absolutely. I would dare say it can, but I'd have to double check on that one, because if you didn't want people, like I said at the beginning of the presentation, if you didn't want Copilot to reference anything, you would turn off indexing. And I believe you can turn off indexing on a per document basis as well as a per SharePoint basis. So I'd put my leg out there and say it probably could forget things, because it wouldn't have anything to index off in future if you were to turn off indexing for that file or for that SharePoint site. I would dare say it could, but I'd have to double check on that.
Very good questions.
Yeah, great questions. Thank you. Okay, we've got another one here. So Copilot is able to work with, basically, is it able to work with PDF documents? Can it extract information, summarize, and create presentations based on PDFs? So then there's a piece around EU regulations there.
Yes, so it can do it off PDFs. I don't know the details of what it can and cannot do yet, because I know that Adobe, as an example, has got some plugins for Copilot that they're working on. There's various different, if you look for Copilot plugins on the internet, you'll see that Microsoft is working with various different companies to help with that. But in terms of the documents it can live edit and respond to, yes, you can use Copilot as a side. So you'd have to open up the PDF in the browser for a PDF format, and you could still use Copilot off the back of it. Very similar to my terrible demo of it asking to summarize an email. But yes, as long as Copilot is opened up in a Microsoft application like Word or Edge or something like that, the PDF can absolutely be extracted and summarized. Yeah.
And then there was a question on restrictions in GDPR and concerns around usage of Copilot. Are there expected any limitations or bans in the usage of Copilot? So no, not that we're aware of. One thing I will say is Microsoft are working with all of the available kind of lawmakers around AI, and we've also kind of, I say we, Microsoft have founded quite a few of them as well. The thing is with Copilot, right, is not everyone is going to have it and needs to have it. No, I would love to have it, right, but it is a choice thing. So if you decide that actually you don't want it to access certain things, or you're just not comfortable with it, then you don't have to, I guess. If you are concerned.
Yeah, I've just dropped it into the link here. So I've dropped in the Microsoft Copilot data privacy and security for Copilot. There's a lot of links and a lot of documentation on there around it all. So that should answer a lot of the things in terms of everything what you can do. Yeah. So yeah, and there's a section on here. It says about deleting the history of user interactions. You can delete the user history of interactions, as an example. You'd have to create a support ticket with Microsoft to do that. For European Union users, we have additional safeguards to comply with EU data boundaries. EU traffic stays within the EU data boundary, while worldwide traffic can be sent to the EU and other countries and regions for large language model processing. So, but yeah, there's a lot of information on there around.
So the point is always that Copilot will respect your policies that are in place. That's the key thing here. And
yeah,
and not to scare you off and say that you shouldn't use it, but if you're really worried, then yeah, maybe not.
Yeah, the thing that I would say is that the biggest organizations that have been playing around with Copilot in the private preview have been creating and adapting AI policies within the workplace so that the users understand the fair use of Copilot, what it can and cannot do. And if they're not comfortable interacting with AI, they don't have to have a license for it. So I would suggest that you have a look at while you're doing the workshops and stuff with Stripe and whatnot to get ready for Copilot, the sensitivity labels and things like that. Have a poll, have a chat with your team on what the policies should be and how to implement it. Hey, you could even ask ChatGPT or Copilot to create you a policy on AI if you wanted to. Yeah, that's what I would look at as well.
Great stuff. I think that might be all of the questions, guys. I just want to move on to the next slide quickly. Just there's an email there basically for anyone that wants to get in touch. Just put it for my attention. That's Hannah Morley, and yeah, we'll be able to help you. And yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your very busy day. And I hope this has been helpful for everyone.
Brilliant.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
And
very much,
again,
everyone.
As Hannah's mentioned, if you've got any questions, just stick them on that email, and we'll get in touch.
Yeah. And this will be available on YouTube as well. I'll send it out in an email to you also. Everyone's got access as well. Okay.
Great.
Thanks,
All right.
everyone.
Cheers, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.